It is the duty of the free man to resist tyranny at every turn. Every man will either watch his freedom stripped away or take action to protect what he loves. Introducing the A3, the newest revolutionary body armor from Armored Republic. The A3 is the new standard for lightweight multi-hit body armor. A3 plates are incredibly light at 4.6 pounds. The patented design captures fragmentation while remaining multi-hit capable. The A3 will stop up to M80 ball, yet comes in at only 0.7 inches thick. The A3 is the thinnest NIJ.06 compliant or certified composite standalone plate that includes the drop test. The A3 is the first of its kind, patent pending, that combines an alloy strike face with polyethylene backing, revolutionizing body armor technology by providing strength and durability while remaining sleek and maneuverable. The A3 is the new standard in lightweight body armor. The fight against tyranny just got stronger.
Hey y'all, it's Beer and Psalms Wednesday.
Yes, it is.
On the Fight Laugh Feast Network, Pastor Toby Chuck Knox, I'm the Waterboy. Welcome to Cross Politics, and we have Jassen Bluto in the studio. More on him in a minute.
Right. But first,
yes,
man, you just got me thinking. Right before we
go to the show, he did that.
Does this political, biblical, theological thing, and I'm like, it's like making my head hurt.
It's like squirrel. Yeah.
Dime Payments is a Christian-owned processing payment business.
Ball.
Every business needs a payment process system, so go to dimepayments.com/FLF and sign your business up. Working with them actually supports us. They won't cancel you like Stripe canceled President Trump. They won't cancel you like MailChimp canceled the Babylon Bee. Check them out. At least have a phone call. Tell them that Cross Politic sent you. Go to dimepayments.com/FLF.
And the thing I like about Dime Payments, their customer service has been what sold me.
Oh.
Like they don't have some of the technology that Stripe does, but they'll get you there through their customer service.
Nice.
That's
brilliant.
We are not a tax savvy group here, and Dime Payments got us there. So
wow. Tech savvy.
Yeah.
I thought you said tax savvy. I was like, I'm not tax savvy either. But
that's why we have a tax account also. My bad.
Hey, before we jump into things on the show today, I just want to remind you all that we have a brand new show dropping. We have a new app dropping.
Yes.
June 1st. Yep. And with that, we are, Lord willing, beginning to plunge or I don't know, maybe walk into
the shallow end.
The shallow end of what we've been hoping to do for years now, which is actually build out a network of Fight Laugh Feast entertainment. Yeah. The first show coming out is called This America. We showed the trailer on yesterday's show. We're showing again today because we're excited. We want you to be excited. This is kind of like, what'd you call it? Like Mike Rose?
Dirty Jobs. Meets Christian Economy.
Meets Christian Economy. Yeah. So This America.
No matter where you grew up, we all grew up in the same place. This America. The land of the free and the home of the brave. The land they handed down from generation to generation, and now people are trying to tell us that our forefathers were a disgrace. You know, the ones who gave their lives tilling frontiers into cities, plains into skyscrapers, and turning deserts into gardens. We build on the shoulders of our forefathers. We don't trample on their graves, because the old paths they cleared paved the way for us to greater heights. Small government, bold business, faithful families, as we build innovative companies, launch educational movements, build healthy churches, pubs, and businesses, and work with the same determinations our forefathers had to make our country more of what we know as This America. Join me as I go on a mission to find those 21st century pioneers who still believe in This America.
And here's the thing, woke culture, 1990s, 2000, even 1980s way of doing business was that you need to separate your faith from business, keep your faith private, and just don't let the market know that you're a Christian. Just run your business the way you should run your business. And that look at what that's got us.
Right.
It's pushed Christian companies into the corners.
Right.
It's pushed woke culture all over the place, even into Christian companies.
Right.
And so that's why I think this America is so important, is because we're trying to remind basically the America that the Christian economy is what built a large portion of our current economy.
So you want to highlight Christian entrepreneurs, Christian businessmen who are getting back to work, are building businesses because they believe in a Christian way of life.
That's right.
In this country, the same way of life that built this country, and they're still doing it today, and we want to support them. So June 1st, the new app drops, and what was formerly known as the Club Portal is becoming the Fight Laugh Feast Pub TV, and so join the pub so that you can watch This America on June 1st.
I want to say one more thing about the pub, and it's really important. Everybody's talking about the Tucker Carlson stuff, and we're going to talk about that too, just not today. But when people are talking about the Tucker Carlson thing, they're missing a bigger picture here. Tucker Carlson has some place to land.
Right.
Do you understand? The Christian capital is so important because the way that we can, if we never, let's say that voting was taken away, but economy wasn't, we could actually work and make things and sell things and accumulate money and wealth and build things. We can do a lot to change society just by having Christian capital.
Right.
And Tucker's freedom to be able to speak is only there because you have Elon Musk, who spent $44 or $48 billion.
Right.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
So that kind of money creates an environment. So what does free speech cost? Somewhere around $44-48 billion.
Well, it costs the blood of a lot of our brothers and fathers.
You know what I mean? Yeah, that's right.
You know?
That's absolutely.
It's even more expensive.
It's
than
more
that.
way more. But my point is that part of our job, the ones who are not laying down their lives in that manner, is to help keep it up by being a blessing to other people, to accumulate wealth and building foundations.
Lay your life down today.
And institutions. And so don't complain about Netflix. Don't complain about YouTube. Don't complain about any other platform, Fox News. If you are looking and say, well, what can I do? $120 for a year. That's what you can do. Join the Fight Laugh Feast Club.
Right.
Help us build the institution that we want to see. And now the entertainment and content that we want is out there. The way that you tell the government no is by saying, I'm not shutting down my business.
Right.
That's right.
I'm not going to do it.
Right.
You know, so that's one way that we can be involved in the culture building society right now.
Do you want to play organ for
Yeah,
yourself?
well, no, I'm trying not to get started. That's that really.
It was offering time, I think. Right? No?
Find the Christians and spend your money with them.
Yeah, do it. Jassen Bluto's had two parallel careers: law enforcement and Air Force Security Forces officer. He served on 3 separate police agencies on both East and West Coast. He's East Coast, West Coast.
Wow.
He's just don't
So
mess
you
with
have
him.
a fight yourself.
So it's a Biggie or
West
Tupac.
Coast,
Who is it?
I don't have to choose. I can have both.
And he retired as a detective from an agency in Los Angeles County where he was a SWAT operator. Sniper, what? And worked undercover as well. Served as an officer involved shooting and robbery and homicide investigator.
Are you undercover now?
Maybe.
Maybe. In the Air Force, Jassen
have to
had
kill you.
a 32-year career culminating in Senate confirmation to the rank of colonel, commanded 4 squadrons, served in combat, and led at the national level, overseeing physical security and anti-terrorism policy and training for the entire Air National Guard. Jassen, thanks for coming on Cross Politic.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Man.
Second time. Invited
Yeah,
back.
I know.
It's a big day for me.
We'll see if you come back a third time. So, Jason,
Every day's an interview.
Yeah.
Every day's an interview.
So here's the thing. The world has changed. And over the last few shootings, and maybe the last year or so, I've really been able to notice this. I think Aaron Wren really helped me with his positive, neutral, negative world. I don't think I understood the realities of the negative world really until, I don't know, I think the Nashville shooting kind of woke me up a little bit. That was, and then this Allen.
The reaction, you mean, to the Nashville shooting?
Both.
Or both?
Both.
Okay.
And then the Allen, Texas shooting. There's been some things that's been kind of like off. We know these are.
Yeah.
We're gonna leave these alone. Yeah, we're just not gonna touch those. And we know the insane people would probably get involved and say, "Oh, those places are not off the table. We're gonna jump on those." But it seems like now these shootings are becoming more common with people who are just upset. And so here's what I want. I want to try and help our audience. And I can't understand when I look at the Nashville shooting. I see, I'm so happy for the police officers that came in there and handled business. But I'm wondering to myself, where were the other people with firearms to engage the shooter upon that initial shots of the door? Like, why, if we know that we're living in a negative world and we know that we got targets on our back, it doesn't seem like we're thinking and operating in our lives like that's a reality. And so I want to try and spend some time to frame this negative world and what kind of mindset do we need to be having in this new negative world? Because we're still acting like it's the 80s or 90s or early 2000s.
Yeah, I think the Aaron Wren's discussion of the positive, neutral, negative world is very helpful. And if you look at mass shootings, I mean, mass shootings and mass killings are categorized differently. Mass shootings are, any more than 2 people.
Right.
Mass killing is categorized as 4 people dead in an incident. Well, we're definitely having more mass shootings every year. We're up to 202 this year, and we're hitting that in May. Previously, we hit those numbers in maybe June, July, and it's just steadily increasing. So I think there's some politics involved, and I think there is also some psychological issues involved, or mental health issues with people, right? There's some, like this guy in Allen, they were saying, he was discharged from the Army
because,
after
3 months
he wasn't fit to serve.
Right.
Anybody who's transgender obviously has mental issues, right?
Right.
And so I think Nashville was a big wake-up call. I think for me, seeing someone intentionally target Christians.
Yeah, Christian school.
And I've been working with a lot of churches with security and helping them with security plans and training. And you can say it, and but everybody's like, to your other point, maybe it's not going to happen here. It'll never happen here. Mm-hmm. I'm saying that because it's the extreme, because I want people to buy into training. But now we're actually seeing it. People being targeted for being Christians, right? So what can people do? Is a good question. I think everybody's got to be prepared to defend their family when they go into a public setting, and at least be on yellow. There's this kind of alarm, colors like a stoplight of where you should be. Green is, when you're perfectly safe, you're at home, everything's cool, you don't have to have your guard up. Yellow is kind of your guard is up, you're looking for threats. And then red is you're actively engaged in some kind of threat. Mm-hmm. I think everybody's got to kind of be in yellow when they're out in public, and be monitoring the situation. Where are the exits? Where can I get, if I'm with my wife and kids? Where, if something happened right now, where do we get out? Where would I hide them? If you're looking to run, hide, and fight, I think that's, no matter where you are, not just school, that's a good reaction.
Run, hide, and fight.
Yeah. So, if you can run away from the area, run. If you can hide because you can't run, you want to hide and get behind cover, something that'll stop bullets, or barricade yourself into a room. And then last resort is fight,
Why not the first one be fight?
Well, I think that's a good pushback. I think it depends. Like if am I by myself or have my family, right? So if I have my family with me, I'm not gonna choose to drag them into the fight. I'm gonna get them in a safe area, and then I'm gonna go fight.
If you're a teacher of kids, you'd also like you want to run and hide first.
Get all the kids,
get the kids out.
Yeah.
So it's depending on the situation.
Yeah, and I think it's different for me versus someone who doesn't have the level of training. Because you can carry a gun, but if you haven't had any like time compressed decision making, if you've never shot moving targets, if you've never been at a high level of stress in trying to engage, you really got to do some self-assessment and decide whether that's really what you're going to do or not. Because someone who's unskilled could make it worse.
So just having to, so I think everybody sees stuff like Allen, Texas, Nashville, or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, I'm buying a gun, I'm getting some ammo," but that's not enough.
No, it's not enough. And then even I brought a couple slides, but training's not even enough, right? Sometimes, just training on the range.
Okay.
So if you look here. So this is a study that was done by Force Science. So Force Science is like a peer-reviewed journal or peer-reviewed group that does scientific experimentations in the use of force. And they found that when they took a novice out, someone who had never had any shooting training, put them on the line with a gun at 5, 15, and 25 yards. Like at 5 yards, you could see their percentage of hits was 77%. Their rounds hit at 15 yards were about 29%, and then the rounds hit At 15, and then at 25, we're about 6%. The expert is someone that has had 40 hours of training, and their hits were 87, 38, and 11. So that tells you that a novice who's never picked up a gun before is only about 10% less accurate than you if you've had 40 hours of training.
Ooh.
So,
and that's not with having like it's real time, adrenaline rush and pressure.
Right.
Does that matter in those situations though? Between a novice?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. So I think, obviously I would say you should have a gun and protect yourself. You should be trained, but you also need to have a level of situational awareness so that you can see threats before they're coming, and that I think is more important, to be able to see threats, see when they're coming, and then kind of have mentally rehearsed what you're going to do with your family and even yourself if something jumps off.
So what do you mean you can see threats before they're coming? You make me think of like Russell Moore, who can't see a threat before it comes. But like,
if you can see Russell Moore, you can see a threat before it comes.
But what do you mean, like in a real life situation? What do you mean seeing a threat before it comes? Give me an example of that.
So we all have baselines, right? So if you were to go to a mall on a Saturday, there's baseline behavior. There's guys sitting on a bench waiting for his wife to go, buy something in a store. Yeah. There's people with their kids playing. Everything's kind of placid and calm, and people are doing about what you'd expect them to do. And so when most people, 95% of people, when they're out in public, they don't even notice what baseline behavior is. They're just kind of oblivious. And you can prove this out. Just look at your normal church. You just watch people come and go. Most people are normally oblivious about of what's going on around them. So if you learn to look at what the baseline looks like, you can detect anomalies. And anomalies to the baseline are what you're looking at. So when I train people to do security, like a lot of churches, when I train their guys on how to do security at the door, what I'm saying to them is, yeah, you can act like a greeter, but that's not really what you're doing. You're there to interact with the people you don't know, not the people you know, and see if they're a threat by looking at behaviors that are anomalies, right? Like, is their body language wrong? Do they have aggressive posture when you're talking to them, right? We all have biometric baselines, right? You have a typical heart rate. You have a way you look if you're not anxious, right? You have typical skin color. Well, when you're anxious or you have anxiety, your heart rate goes up, right? Your body starts to display characteristics that they don't when you're in a baseline or calm behavior. Maybe blood recedes or goes to certain areas in your face. Like if someone's angry, you see them get red in the face, right? Your eyes, your pupils can dilate when you're excited, right? So there's certain things you can look at when you're talking to people. So to see if there's behaviors that are anomalies, and we can do this kind of out in public.
Yeah, it sounds like this also could be misapplied in such a way where you're just wound tight constantly every time you go out in public, and then that might also cloud your judgment too.
Right? No, yeah, you don't want to be a loose cannon out there. Like there's a threat behind every bush. I think you got to temper it. So
there is the reality though. I keep thinking about the more and more I see things, I feel like. And I could be wrong about this. This could be social media and other things that I watch that make me feel like that the world that I'm living in now, that seems like a reality.
Yeah.
Where those kind of things, these people didn't think when they were at the mall that my daughter that I was just holding her hand.
Well, they probably couldn't even see a baseline there with
right.
this guy,
well, that's
right?
What
This guy gets out of the car.
That's what I was going to ask. So in those situations, we are always at a disadvantage. How do you see something like what happened in Allen ahead of time?
Well, the people closest to the incident, there's no warning there, right? This guy steps out of his driver's door with an M4 and just starts firing. Those people had no chance to react.
Yeah.
However, if you're just inside the door and the anomaly is gunfire, right? Are you prepared to do something about it, or is it like, hey, what's that? And have you prepared ahead of time? Like if I hear a gunfire at the mall, I know that's not normal, and I need to do something.
Right.
But psychologically, we have baselines too, right? So when we're involved in a high threat situation, we get a lot of anxiety, right? We get that fight or flight, feeling in us. Adrenaline dumps into us. Our instinct is to retreat back to the baseline by telling ourselves everything's fine. that it sounded like gunfire. It must have been a car backfiring. I'm sure it was nothing. I think we have to get used to, in this environment, trusting some, those anomalies that we hear in the environment, and actually thinking about what the baselines and anomalies are when we're out in public so we can react appropriately. I mean, I shared with you not too long ago a book called A Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker. That everybody should read that, because that's the premise of the book, is that we have this gift of fear. That is that our brain can cognitively diagnose a situation and interpret things way better than we can rationally and logically think through it. And so because of, we have certain reflexes, right? Like when you're in a car and someone jams their brakes on in front of you, you don't think, oh, they're slowing down, I should hit my brakes. You instinctually hit your brakes, right? That's just the result of imprinting on your brain. A situation happens, you have a reaction, right? So you got to get used to doing that and trusting that in your environment. So some people are able to grow up in a bad environment, right? If you grow up in a violent home or you grow up in a violent neighborhood, by the time you're like 10, you understand what is bad, what areas and what behaviors are tend to get you in trouble or hurt, and you stay away from those behaviors. Those of us that did not grow up in those environments, we to learn how to do that. Yeah. And so we've got to build that imprinting by practicing, what's a baseline and what's an anomalous behavior. And so there's two books, that one, Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker, and then Left of Bang is another one that talks about physiological changes in people that can help you detect whether they're a threat. It talks about things like geographical anchors, like the church is a geographical anchor, right? An unbeliever, and we've all heard this, people like, oh, the church would set on fire if I stepped in there, right? So people that aren't believers tend to be uncomfortable going in there, but it also makes it a target, right? Because they know where our geographical anchors are. So I think we just got to get smart. And if you haven't grown up in that environment where you understand where the danger points are, you've got to get smart on that and practice doing it. So
I'm curious, Jason, from your perspective, we have the Nashville shooting, we have this Allen, Texas shooting. Are there are there some significant differences between those two shootings that you notice and you think are telling about sort of where we are in a culture?
Well, I mean, the Allen shooting's hard to diagnose. There's so much politics involved, right? It's a Hispanic who's a white, nationalist who's, shooting minorities. So that's the narrative right now. We don't know what's true. The investigators, even today, I was reading on the Fort Worth newspaper that they haven't really released a motive at this point. So that's tough. But they didn't even release the manifesto in Nashville. Right. So everybody, for that. So the politics of these things, they're really tight. But I would say that the difference to me really is the people that are specifically targeted, a
Christian church in a school.
In Nashville. Yeah. They were targeted for their beliefs. Right. And the shooting in Allen looks like this guy just wanted to shoot people, and he just picked that location and just started firing. Because right now there's the investigators aren't releasing that there's even a pattern of the victims. Even though they all tend to be of minority status.
Right. But it was a shopping mall, so it's a little more indiscriminate in that sense, a little less targeted.
I think the one thing I noticed about the Allen shooting, I remember it looked like the Allen shooter pulled up in a car, got out, and this big truck saw the shooting happen and turned and fled. I don't know if you remember seeing that. And that was maybe the one instance where I was like, maybe that guy could have done something about it.
Yeah, he could have run that guy down.
He could have run him right over.
Yeah. I mean, if that was me in a truck, I probably would have plowed into him and run him down. But not everybody's going to have that instinct. I mean,
that's the thing.
It turns out, I mean, we're image bearers of God, and it's not normal for us to want to kill other image bearers of God, right? So that's why the way you train people. Well, that's why you shoot. Well, if you go to the range, you're going to shoot. You're going to shoot a silhouette target, right? If you read On Killing by Grossman, one of the things he talks about is how do you train somebody to kill, because it's not a normal reflex for us. And so you move from bullseye targets, that was pre-World War II, and then going into Korea and Vietnam, you change it to silhouette targets, pop-up targets, quick reactions, so you're not thinking. And so you get higher kill percentages out of the military. So we're actually training like that now for civilians and law enforcement. Right. But if you don't have that training, that's about the instinct you'd expect from somebody. So that's where, again, I would encourage people to actually do some training and take it seriously. So when the time comes, you're ready to act. But most of us act, if you had to read a book and there was no test coming, you wouldn't take it as seriously if you knew there was a test coming, right? Yeah. So I think we've got to train and prepare ourselves like there's a test coming.
There's a graph that you showed us earlier about, was it from the FBI or about the reasons or the progression of a mass shooting?
The pathway to violence.
Pathway to violence.
Department of Homeland Security.
And it starts off with, the perpetrator has some sort of grievance, hostility, bitterness. Then they get into kind of violent thinking patterns. Is that what ideation?
Yeah, it moves to, I'm going to kill that person, and how would I do it?
And then they start researching and planning, and then preparation, and then the thing that struck me about this is from the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. Yep. There's no graph, or not included in this graph, is broken down families and drug use.
Right, or plays violent video games. Yeah. People or violent movies, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, to me, that would be actually more into the violent ideation side of things, where they're thinking and absorbing and playing the content. There's still, a violent video game is, I guess, can be problematic, but to me, it's more problematic downstream than before grievances.
I think it's just kind of, my opinion is we're in a culture of death, right? And so I think it permeates everything. So. So this is just what they see patterns in mass shooters, whether it's at a workplace, right? Because workplace violence was a big deal before, before mass shootings in public places and schools were. So, and those still happen.
Postal, going postal, right?
Yeah, going postal, right?
Term for that.
So, And so, but I think the culture of death is why it's leaking out and why you're seeing all these young people, So I think Generation Kill was another book Grossman wrote about, where you're seeing the increase in violent media, and then you see the increase in people, taking that violence and simulated violence out into the real world because once they form grievances.
Do you know? Are you familiar? I mean, you mentioned psychological issues. Particularly, one of the things that no one is really talking about is the fact that so many of these shooters are hopped up on various meds. They've been diagnosed with some kind of real or imagined disorder, and then hopped up on Prozac or something like this, some kind of antidepressant or
Ritalin.
Ritalin. I actually saw just yesterday. I don't know if this is the show aired yesterday, but I saw a clip that came across my feed of Robert Kennedy on Mark Stein.
Yep.
And on Mark Stein, he says what nobody's talking about, what no one's allowed to talk about, is the fact that almost every one of these shooters is on some kind of medication. Yeah. You have any insight into that?
No, but like everybody else, excuse me, you see the commercials. And you hear them talk about all the side effects.
Yeah.
Right.
And one of them is suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
Right?
So almost every time.
Diarrhea, suicidal thoughts.
Right.
Connected.
Yeah. But I think it's right up there. It's right up there with the things we're not allowed to talk about.
Right.
If the Homeland Security were, if you loaded them up with True Serum and they actually talked about other effects, I'm sure they would talk about broken families, fatherlessness, someone who hasn't grabbed that young man and straightened him out, right?
Right. So there's a study I think that came out actually this last week, or maybe it's the week before, talking about how up to 30% of those who use marijuana are connected to personality disorders.
Yep.
I mean, so now we're finally allowed to talk about the problems of marijuana after they've legalized it in Denver, after they're getting all their tax money from it in Colorado, Washington, and so forth.
Yeah, but I doubt that's actually going to become a very common thing
probably
to talk
low.
about. I think I'm just saying, even just in terms of whether we're allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't think we're allowed to talk about it still.
Yeah.
I think there's probably
Elon's going to let us talk about it on Twitter.
Yeah.
For how long?
Yeah, maybe for 5 minutes.
Can we talk about time compression decision making? Because I heard you use that term, but what do you mean by that?
So time compressed decision making is essentially, you have in a gunfight, people think that they're going to have plenty of time in a gunfight to make a decision. And you just not, in my virtual range, or I've since sold a company, shout out to Nada Testudo Defense here in Moscow. If you're able to, you go through these scenarios and it's pretty eye opening because you'll put someone in a scenario and you'll be like, okay, so this is the setup or the context. You put them in there and within, 5 seconds, it's going sideways. And before you know it, the guy's got a gun out and he's shooting you and people are like deer in the headlights because they haven't seen the threats coming and then they don't make good decisions, right? Time compressed decision making is essentially how can you gather information in the moment and the right information to make a decision to get ahead of the curve, right? Because our reaction times aren't as fast as we think they are. So on average, so when Force Science again did some research, they found that the average person can draw and shoot a gun in a quarter of a second from their waistband, right?
The average Joe.
Yeah, I actually have a video of a woman that they had who'd never fired a gun. They put a revolver in her waistband. She drew it and fired in a quarter of a second, right? And then the tendency of these people is to shoot you in the face, right? We have at close distance, if I'm going to shoot you, I'm probably not going to look at my sights and I'm going to shoot where I'm looking, right? That's why in gunfights, people get shot in the face a lot and the hands a lot because they're looking at hands. So, and that's another thing to note. You're not in a real shooting situation, you'll never look at your sights. It just doesn't happen. But how many of us train to shoot without our sights, right? To just orient ourselves that way. So if an assailant is at a quarter of a second, how long does it take us? Well, here in that same study, they found it takes about a third of a second for us to even realize something's going on. And our reaction time is different based on whether it's visual or audible, right? Audible, we're a little quicker, right? So if you're at a range and someone, the timer goes off and you draw and shoot, you're going to be faster than if it's a visual cue. Well, when you're in a high threat situation with someone, it's always a visual cue that you're going to key off of. We tend to be really slow at those. So think about that. The assailant's at a quarter of a second. You're at a third of a second before you even start a body movement towards your gun. And then when you pull the gun out, you're at about a second and a half or a second and a quarter if you're fast like Gabe, right?
Yeah. No.
And so you're about a second too late, which means that you have to make decisions way more further ahead of time so that you can beat the assailant to the gunfight. And that means noticing things like, do they have a bulge? How are they behaving? Are they escalating behavior, de-escalating behavior? Where are their hands? We have a focal view of about 1 to 2 degrees. And that's like your thumb. That's about all that you can focus on.
What do you mean focal view of 1 or 2 degrees?
So we have a the way our eyes see is we can focus on about 1 to 3 degrees. The rest is peripheral vision from about 2 to 10 degrees. And then after that, it's ambient light gathering. So this is why when they tell you to shoot, right, you can only focus on one thing. It's usually your front sight, right? Because that's about 1 to 2 degrees of focus.
Okay.
So now you're in a situation where you're dealing with someone who's a threat and you have 1 to 2 degree visual focus. What you focus on becomes very important. And then what you focus on is what you tend to remember after a shooting. So if you're not focused on the right things and all of a sudden someone has a gun in their hand and you shoot them, right? If you weren't focused on them going into their pocket or their waistband to pull a gun out because you weren't looking there and focused there, you're not even going to know where that gun came from all of a sudden. All of a sudden there's a gun there because you focused on it. And so most people, when they're in an interaction with someone, they're looking at their face when they're talking because we're trying to read somebody, when really the most important place to look is probably maybe their face, but their hands, right? Back to the face, hands. So where you focus in that moment becomes really important because you can predict what they're going to do. So if I'm looking at his face and he's making a weapon acquisition position with his arm, I'm going to miss it. And then I'm going to be way behind him because action is faster than reaction.
Where do you start?
So
if you're what I call suburb soft, where this world is like odd to you, and you just got dropped in the middle of Iraq, where do you, where do you start?
Well, I would start with, those 2 books, Gift of Fear. There's actually, if you giftofear.com, I believe it is, there's a master class with videos. I would have everyone in your family watch that with you, because it would help prepare them and harden them against threats, right? And to listen to that gift of fear. Left to Bang is another good place to get your situational awareness kind of keyed in. And then, of course, you've got to have some firearms training. And then you got to find someone in your area. In Moscow, we have Nate, and I'm still teaching for Nate there on these, with some of these courses. But anywhere you are, there's people that have these trainings, military law enforcement guys that have either airsoft guns or simunition guns, and then they'll put on scenarios for you and put you into shoot, no shoot situations. I would say go find one of those, because time compressed decision making is a skill. It's not something you just happen to get. And so that's why something they consistently put law enforcement through, because once you shoot somebody, you can't take that back. So you've got to make sure that if you're going to use force, you're making a good decision, right? And then there's the legal aspect of it where, it doesn't matter where you live in this country, if you think opportunity, capability, and intent to do me serious bodily injury or death, then, and you're able to use lethal force at that point, no matter where you are in this country, those 3 puzzle pieces, if you're actively thinking about that in the moment, helps you get ahead of the curve, right? So does he have the opportunity to seriously injure me or kill me? Are we in the same proximity, right? Does he have the opportunity to stab me with a knife? Of course, he's across the street, he doesn't, but if he has a gun, he has the opportunity to shoot me, right?
Right.
Capability. What's the weapon he has? The weapon doesn't even have to be a weapon. The weapon can be a person. Is he an MMA fighter?
Interesting.
Is there 3 dudes, right?
Interesting.
Right? And then intent. Most intent comes from body language. It comes from someone pointing a gun at you. It comes from what people say. And so these are, when we talk about time compressed decision making, these are all things that we have to collect as data and sift through in 3 to 5 seconds, or however long this interaction takes, to say opportunity, capability, intent is present, and I need to protect myself or somebody else right now. And then be able to recall that to legally protect yourself, right? So those are things you have to practice. Wow. And so you have to take your training seriously.
That's really helpful, Jason.
Yeah.
Really appreciate that.
You guys be able to stay for the club portal maybe a little bit?
Yeah. Hang tight here. Right. Don't be limited by restrictive networks. There's another way, a biblical way. Samaritan Ministries.
They're back.
So you have a medical need. You don't have to check and see what hospital is in your network or be concerned about the doctor being in network too. No, you go to the hospital you choose and don't give a second thought as to what's in network and what's not. Because with Samaritan Ministries, you're in control of your health care. Afterwards, fellow members pray for you. They send money directly to you to help pay your medical bills. And when they have a medical need, you'll do the same for them. That's what biblical healthcare sharing looks like. Check it out today at SamaritanMinistries.org/crosspolitic. That's SamaritanMinistries.org/crosspolitic.
You got the beer open?
Yeah.
I can open my beer.
Yeah.
There we go. Hey, Beer and Psalms Wednesday. Today's Psalm of the day is Psalm 42. This is our friend's Brother Down.
Such a great
singing. This is actually a Genevan version of Psalm 42 with a little modern instrumentation. As the hart panteth after the water brook, so panteth my soul after thee, O God. My soul thirsteth for God, for the living God. When shall I come and appear before God? My tears have been my meat day and night, while they continually say unto me, Where is thy God? When I remembered these things, I pour out my soul in me, for I had gone with the multitude. I went with them to the house of God, with the voice of joy and praise, with a multitude that kept the holy day. Why art thou cast down, O my soul? And why art thou disquieted in me? Hope thou in God, for I shall yet praise him for the help of his countenance. O my God, my soul is cast down within me. Therefore will I remember thee from the land of Jordan and from the Hermonites, from the hill of Mizar. Deep calleth unto deep the noise of thy waterspouts. All thy waves and thy billows are gone over me. Yet the Lord will command his loving kindness in the daytime, and the night his song shall be with me, and my prayer unto the God of my life. I will say unto God my rock, why hast thou forgotten me? Why do I go mourning because of the oppression of the enemy? As with a sword in my bones, my enemies reproach me, while they say daily unto me, where is thy God? Why art thou cast down, O my soul? And why art thou disquieted within me? Hope thou in God, for I shall yet praise him, who is the health of my countenance and my God. This is a psalm by the sons of Korah, actually. One of those psalms is not by David or Solomon or Asaph. And it's all about when you've been waiting on God to answer your prayer for a long time. And when you haven't been able to go to worship, or when you're just simply waiting for God to act and your enemies are taunting you, saying, where is your God? I thought your God took care of you. And those voices maybe have even gotten into your head. And now you begin to be tempted to ask the same thing. Where is my God? And the psalmist says that when he sees this beginning to happen, he starts to talk to himself. He begins questioning his own soul. And he says, why are you cast down, O my soul? Why are you disquieted in me? And then he preaches to himself. He exhorts his own soul. He says, soul, hope in God, for you will still praise God when he smiles on you. The psalm recognizes that God's hard providences even come over us sometimes. He says all of God's waves, his billows have gone over him. Even his enemies have attacked him like a sword in his bones. And yet the psalm sings out defiantly, the Lord will send his loving kindness, and his song will be with him in the night. He prays to God, his rock. Why have you forgotten me? Which is exactly how you should cry out to God. You cry out to God, your rock. And the psalmist once more questions his soul. Why are you cast down? And then he commands his soul, hope in God. You will praise him again. He will make you smile again because he is your God. Athanasius once wrote a letter to one of his disciples urging him to study and memorize all the Psalms. It's a great letter. It's often found in a particular copy of On the Incarnation as an appendix on the Psalms.
He would know.
And Athanasius said, he told his disciple, you need to know the Psalms. And he says, the reason you need to know all the Psalms is because the Psalms are the inspired prayers that you're going to need. And he starts going through he just starts rattling off the Psalms, and you can just tell from the letter that
he's memorized.
He's got them at his fingertips. He says, when you're down, you need this Psalm, and when you're excited, you need this Psalm, and when you're getting chased by your enemies, you need this Psalm, and when everybody's against you, you need this Psalm. Many of every Psalm and prayer for every occasion. Many worship songs fail at this very point. They're all like puddles in a parking lot, 10 feet wide and 1 inch deep. But the Psalms express the depths of our experience. And this is also the secret to stable Christian lives. Christians are not people who never have hard times or never have difficulties. No, Christians are people who are never alone. We walk unafraid because we always walk with our King. He goes before us, and when it is hard, we cry out to him, and he hears us, and he comforts us. He's our shepherd, and he carries us. So how do we stay joyful, stable, calm when the creepy clowns are plotting to take our children? We sing the Psalms, and we tell our souls, hope in God.
Come on now.
How do we stay joyful while millions of babies are still being slaughtered by abortion? We sing Psalms, and we tell our souls, hope in God, your rock. How do you go home and love your wife and your children after another hard day at work? Well, you cry out to God, and you tell him that you need him, and then you ask your soul, why are you so down? And then you tell yourself, hope in God. You will be praising God again very soon because he is God, your rock.
Cheers. Beer and Psalms.
Cheers to the King. You can't cheers without a beer. What is wrong with you? Neither one of you guys. All right, we're going to go back into the portal.
The pub portal.
Yeah, it's not that yet.
The pub TV.
So if you're single, get married. If you're married, have you some kids. And if you have kids, go baptize them. Until tomorrow, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Go fight, laugh, and feast. This is Cross Politic.
Looking for a job isn't easy. It used to be that you could apply at a big name tech company and build a great career for yourself. But times have changed. Many of these companies have gone full woke. And if you aren't the right gender, ethnicity, you don't use pronouns, or if you're not an activist for the preferred cause, then good luck. Why would you risk your career on that? At Red Balloon, we're connecting good employees with top quality companies that value you for your skills and your work ethic, not your social activism score. Employers who post jobs on Red Balloon are focused on creating an enjoyable and productive work culture, free from divisive woke mandates. So if you want to find a serious career path without the nonsense, come to Red Balloon and post your resume today. Because you shouldn't have to choose between your job and your values. That's redballoon.work, where you can find your future.
Home. It's where you build your legacy, where traditions are started, seeds are planted, meals are shared, and stories are told. We are Chris and Natalie Carpenter, owners of Story Real Estate, and our team of top agents helps people find homes in Moscow, Idaho, and around the country.
Have you thought about a move? Contact us to get connected with a top agent who shares your values and puts your family first. Or reach out to us about our Moscow relocation guide.
Wherever you're looking to go, we can help you find home. Call us at Story Real Estate or visit us at storyrealestate.com and start building your legacy.